Hello and welcome back to season 2 of She Shield. I'm your host, Sofia, and I am so glad you are here. Guys, season 1 was a success. And what I mean by that is I got a bunch of feedback from you all saying that She Shield became this kind of landing ground for when you were hungry for information on a certain topic. She Shield became the place you went to in order to learn more about that topic. We had guest speakers on from every facet and niche of the gun industry, everything from competition shooters to concealed carry instructors, of course, including the combatives community. So, Craig Douglas of Shivworks was our first guest speaker. He, of course, teaches weapons-based combatives all the way to jiu-jitsu gym owners talking about what goes in to a good jiu-jitsu gym and how to select one for yourself. So I'm very thankful for all of the guest speakers that made season 1 possible, and I'm so glad you all are here. Before we go into what makes season 2 different, why we did a whole kind of rebrand, and what I mean by rebrand is you all should have seen the new logo by now if you're listening to this. Um, I just wanted to freshen it up for you all, get some kind of new merch going out, really build a community around this podcast as opposed to it kind of just being this conversational platform. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I've just kind of been hungry to create more of a community. But besides all of that, guys, we're going to talk about what makes season 2 unique after I introduce myself, which is so nerve wracking, like I've done this podcast since November of 2021. I started it with a good friend of mine. We were jiu-jitsu rolling partners, and I remember one day we were talking about like, oh gosh, it's so hard to know what to look for in finding a good jiu-jitsu gym. And we had these great conversations. We were talking about, things we'd seen, like find a gym that has a good family focus, right? Are there kids classes? Is there a women's only class? Otherwise, you might be going to some kind of like meathead jiu-jitsu competitive gym where you might get injured because all the dudes there are rolling at 110% every time. And after we had some of these conversations, we would say something like, wow, I wish we would have known this when we started. And that's when it hit us. Like we should start a platform, a community wherein we discuss these things. So I was really thankful for her. She's gone on to do other things now. I took on She Shield by myself pretty much after episode about 20 and on. So guys, flash forward to we are in September of 2025. It's been for pretty wild years of building this podcast up. So I'm really thankful you guys are here to listen to me ramble because I would just love to take a moment and introduce myself to you. You all are trusting me with your time. You're trusting me to select good guest speakers to come on and speak on very important topics, in my opinion. So I want to make sure I adequately introduce myself, and then we'll talk about what you can expect in season 2. All right, guys. So my journey began when I was really young. Um, I've not told this side of the story too often because it's so personal to me, but I was made to feel powerless as a kid. I decided I never wanted to feel that way again. Without going into too much, uh, detail of my kind of trauma there, I decided I wanted to take martial arts. And, I was 13, you guys. Like, I didn't know what type of martial arts would be the most applicable to real world self defense. I just knew that I wanted to feel empowered. So I started a martial arts called Kuk Sool Won. And Kuk Sool Won is your traditional Korean style martial arts. You have your forms, your techniques, and even some weapons work. And I don't mean knife and gun, I mean long staff, short staff, swords, right? And I eventually got to a place where I would leave class and I would still feel just so ill prepared for the world. I was like, how is this actually gonna apply for me? So at the same time, I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and I unfortunately broke my nose. And that led to kind of my mom exercising caution and trying to direct me to be, smart about the sports I was choosing because at the time and ever since I was 5, I was a competitive violinist and piano. So my mom did the mom thing, she was like, "Hey, make sure you're not going to break your fingers before all region, all state." And I thought she had a good point, so I stopped jiu-jitsu temporarily. I continued in Kuk Sool Won, transferred over to Mu Sool Won, which is kind of the relative martial arts with a little bit more real world application. those classes actually challenged me, made me super strong. I remember, I had really beautiful kicks. I found an instructor that, was not a fan of point sparring. We did more full contact sparring. So I started to get a little bit of a feel for what it was truly like to be close in quarters with someone, especially in a defensive situation. And then I got my black belt in that when I had turned 18, graduated high school, and realized I was about to go off to college, guys, and I could do anything I wanted. At the time, I decided to be pre med. So by being pre med, you kind of choose some subset of science in, at the university. I chose biochemistry. That was kind of where I thought I should be. The pre-med council team was like, "Hey, biochem is the most impressive when you're applying to med school, so become biochem," and so I did. Um, Without getting too far into that journey, I'll kinda tell you a little bit about that later. I found a jiu-jitsu gym in my college town. I started back in jiu-jitsu, which at least, the little experience I had as a kid really helped me out, especially with being on the ground, right? If you go from a standing martial arts or you go from never having a martial arts in your pocket, going to jiu-jitsu can be kind of a jarring experience. It's one of the topics I love to bring onto the episodes because if you're sitting there and you're like, "Yeah, jiu-jitsu sounds awful," like, basically getting in a robe or tight clothing if you're doing nogi and then going onto a mat and sweating with other people, that sounds gross, right? But guys, it is a really great martial arts. A lot of fights end up on the ground. I would say that wrestling is more applicable from what I've seen, having now done weapons-based combatives and having hindsight. But jiu-jitsu is a more commonly practiced martial arts. You can typically find a jiu-jitsu gym, and it still has a lot of application to real-world self-defense when, of course, added with striking, weapons, and soft skills like verbal skills. So, with that said, you guys, I started jiu-jitsu. I worked really hard in the summers. I started Muay Thai back home when I would come home from my pre-med years, and, I fell in love with how prepared I felt as a result of truly learning how to strike in Muay Thai and truly learning how to handle myself on the ground with Jiu-Jitsu. I unfortunately during my time training for Muay Thai, you may hear me on the podcast mention that I was doing fight camp. I really was. I was training for my first fight. My coach, was scouting out an opponent for myself. He found a woman that I was gonna go up against, and during a fight camp, I broke my nose pretty severely. I couldn't really breathe out of my left nostril. I remember in my Muay Thai shorts, shin guards, and my little muscle tank that had my coach's brand on it. Um, I went into my dad's office and he's a physician. I walked into his office and I pointed at my nose and he was like, "No, you didn't." And I was like, "Yeah, I did." Broke my nose pretty bad, you guys. So I went in to have my first nose surgery. My surgeon cautioned me against doing full contact, so I took the L and I sat out on Muay Thai. I missed it so much. Um, I've recently, at 27 years old, have picked it back up, and it's crazy how much it has just come back so naturally. I've missed it so much because the striking is so applicable. There's so much power behind Muay Thai striking, and oftentimes the sparring is very applicable to like real world combatives. As far as the power that goes into it, the scalable options of training at a higher intensity. Guys, I really like Muay Thai. Um, but yes, let's move on because I'm going on a tangent there. So yeah, Muay Thai happened, I guess you could say, and then after that, it gets a little blurry. I really started picking up momentum on my pre-med journey. Of course, any of you who know anything about the application process to medical school, everything between volunteer hours, research hours, your grades, what you did outside extracurriculars, clubs. I was part of all of the honor societies I could get my hands on, and I got into medical school. I took a gap year to work as a medical assistant. This was during COVID, so 2020. I worked as a kickboxing instructor, and then I became the manager of my kickboxing gym, quit medical assistant work. At the time, I'd also been working shifts at a jail to pass medicine to the detainees as a med passer. So in that year, I really got some real world experience, and I'm really thankful for that. I also started to consider that maybe medicine wasn't what I wanted to do. At that point, I had found out I got into medical school. It was kind of one of those moments of like, okay, yeah, here we go. I'm doing this, I guess. Like, I'm going to go do this. Um, I had re-entered jujitsu and taken it very seriously. I'd re-broken my nose a few times. If you've ever broken your nose, you know it's so easy to re-break. So if you're wondering, like, okay, dude, like, why were you breaking your nose so much? Well, it's really easy, again, like I said, to break it once you've done it. So, guys, I needed another nose surgery. I got to the point where I was having trouble breathing, which, can affect your sleep and your kind of quality of life. So I signed up to get a second nose surgery, and I knew that this was gonna be the nail in the coffin for my Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai full contact years, and I was really sad about it. Like, it really was something that was hard for me to accept, but I was gonna go be a doctor. I didn't need to do full contact training anymore. I wasn't gonna be a fighter, you know, whatever, right? Well, in this time, I picked up shooting, and this kind of looked like I called a buddy of mine. You have those friends that are like, "Hey, if you ever want to come shooting, come shooting." And Victor was someone I did violin with back in the day. My sister and I started a club that helped train orchestra students that couldn't afford private lessons. We were lucky enough to have private lessons growing up, so we created this club where we taught students at our school after school. They just had to sign up on a piece of paper, and then we would reserve that time for them. And one of my good friends, Victor, came from that. And he told me one day, he was like, call me anytime you need anything. Well, I call him. I'm like, hey, man, I want to learn how to shoot guns. And he's like, amazing. Let's go to the range. He brings a Glock 19. I was so nervous. I was like, this thing is going to explode. I was sure of it, that this thing was just going to like explode on me. Like, even though, when you look at a firearm, you can see that the trigger is, the unit that controls everything. You know that if you don't pull the trigger, it's not gonna go off, but there's something about holding that when you don't know everything about it. At least for me, it felt very vulnerable, very scary. I really have to tap into that memory as a firearms instructor now to remember what that felt like, but it was pretty terrifying for me, and therefore, I was like, "I must learn everything I need to know," and that's what I did. I started sharing my journey on social media. I started connecting with people in the gun industry and sharing my jiu-jitsu, sharing my fitness journey. I'd taken on kinesiology, exercise science as an undergrad student. I was fascinated with biomechanics and things like that. So I started sharing this journey and kind of started getting some traction. And just like any female in this industry, you have to, at least I had to ask myself the question of like, how do I wanna present myself as a female in this space? It's really easy to tap into the gun bunny world, and I wanted to be a difference. I wanted to show up and be feminine, be, beautiful, but also be modest and professional and be a person that had, uh, I'd not lost any of my credibility to decisions I'd made on how I express myself, in other words. And if you're listening and you're like, well, to each his own, absolutely, to each his own. The people that are out there doing the gun bunny thing, hell yeah, like whatever it is for you. There are so many niches, subsets within the gun industry. There's concealed carry, there's competition shooting, there's weapons based combatives, there's specialty firearms, there's hunting. If you are someone who is making a living out of primarily being, a marketing agent for one of those niches, and part of that involves, displaying your body, doing something like that, and that's your decision as an adult, that's your decision as an adult, period. I don't have an opinion on that. I've decided to shape my route now to be someone that expresses and represents the femininity in this space without, sacrificing anything for myself. And that's been my personal decision. And it took some time to do that. It took time to do that. It took some really strong female mentors of mine in my corner to help me do that. And I'm really, really thankful for that. Tatiana Whitlock of Context Training and Context, and she's, the training director of a Girl in a Gun national chapter. She is an incredible woman. She is the reason, my path was set on straight, and I'm very, very thankful for that. So, I mean, guys, sorry, there's a little glimpse you didn't ask for into kind of my journey in this industry because, as you know, it's being a woman in any industry, but the firearms industry is very male dominated, and women are used for marketing agents all the time. So, I'm not saying I'm not. at all. I'm not saying that at all. I work with several brands. I only work with brands I believe in, but it took me time to develop kind of what I wanted to be in this space, and I'm still learning, guys. I mean, I'm still learning. With that said, you guys, I started sharing my journey. It took off in a way. I started getting attention, and it was really it was really fun, right? I remember, Big Tech's Ordnance at the time flew me out at SHOT Show. I got to meet all these people I connected with on social media at SHOT Show. I was taken by kind of the grandiosity of the gun industry, all of the possibilities. I had my little honeymoon phase with, like, all of these things that I could do with it. And I started looking around and thinking, "There might be something here for me, like, long term, job-wise." Um, Unfortunately, I'd already entered medical school at this time, already spent, the 30,000 on tuition, already made great friends with my study group, still friends with them, by the way, to this day. Shout out to Hallie and Cynthia. And, it was really hard, it was really hard to look at this path that was so set, right? When you enter medicine, you know where you're gonna go. It's 4 years of a bachelor's degree, it's 4 years of your medical school degree, it's 3 to 5 years of residency. If you have a fellowship after that, it's anywhere between 3 and 7 years of your fellowship. So, you know exactly what comes next. Whereas with this path, I really, really didn't know what I was doing, but I just knew that I would make it happen and make it work for myself. I didn't have a choice. Um, I come from a family of high achievers. My dad is a physician. My mother is an attorney, lawyer, and I wanted to do something great, and I'm still working on what that is. Part of that is developing this podcast, and it means the world to me that you all are here. And if you're still listening up until this point, why? Like, what? Why? I'm just kidding. I'm joking. I'm really glad you're here. I've been putting off this episode because I really want to introduce myself. I really want to share my journey. I think it's a testament for believing in yourself and not taking the path that everyone else wants you to take. Because, guys, when I told people I was quitting medical school, I think you can imagine the looks I got, and, like, the "Are you sures?" I got, and the family calling me being like, "Are you sure?" Luckily, from my immediate family, my sisters, my mom, I didn't have any negative. It was all support. They were all like, "Yeah, we've seen this coming. Like, we knew that you were meant for something else." Um, not that they didn't believe I could become a physician, but guys, yeah, I dropped out, and what did I do? I got my master's degree in kinesiology, exercise science. I wasn't totally sure, you guys, if I ever wanted to go back to med school, so I thought, "You know what? I will go ahead and get my master's," and I did. Arkansas State University. That was an interesting time of my life. Uh, I was also engaged to get married, and, that is when I, started my first job, true job in the gun industry. I won't go too far into that. I don't want to give a platform for that right now. But it was a great starting place in the industry. It gave me the flexibility to take on my podcast very seriously, to invest time in my own personal brand, Fit for Fia, where I share what fits for me. And I'm sure you heard earlier, I started sharing my fitness content. So it started out as a fitness page, but I turned it into what fits for me because anytime someone writes and they're like, "This is not the right way," it's like, man, I never said it was the right way. I just said it's what fits for me. So it's really helped out with responding to certain comments, certain individuals. But guys, that's the that's the story. That's how we're here. Um, I had a major life change about a year ago. I went through a divorce and I moved from Arkansas to Utah, where I'm currently at in my home studio. I'm working very closely with Lena Michalik. She's also one of my very good friends. And I have the pleasure of competing USPSA. She's also helping me go to the world stage for the shotgun world shoot in 2026. That's been a really exciting venture. I never shot a shotgun and then learned how to shoot and did 3 qualifiers for Worlds in 4 months. Which now that I'm saying it out loud, I that's pretty wild, but here we are, you guys. Um, to really orient you where I'm at currently, I do brand education for certain clients. Palm pepper spray is a really good example of a client I help bring an educational voice to the products to make sure to connect those 2 dots. I've, worn Palm products for years. I've always had a pepper spray on me that's been Palm. So working with them really has aligned with my brand, which is, Sofia Espina Marketing LLC. So I do that on the side, guys. I also compete, like I just said. I am getting back into Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu. That's been a journey. If any of you have ever done, combatives, taken a break, gotten back into it, you know what that's like. It's pretty humbling. It's very humbling. And then to top it all off, I am back to firearms instruction. I'm actually releasing season 2 of She Shield and releasing my classes, I guess you could say. Already posted onto the schedule, but teaching now at TNT Guns and Range in Murray, Utah, which is 10 minutes south, one of the two, can't remember, of Salt Lake City. So 10 minutes from, SLC as shield defense training. I really wanted to bring my brands together because um, they have a very similar mission. It is to educate and to bring light to topics that do not get the attention they deserve in this industry. I think earlier you all heard me say, we have competitive shooting, we have concealed carry, combatives, but what we don't see is a connection between competition shooting and concealed carry, competition shooting and combatives, concealed carry and combatives, guys. There's so much overlap and we like to pretend that there's not. And my goal is to create this space where we all get to come together and talk about the usefulness of all of those things. And I'm so lucky to have these industry connections to bring people on who are experts in their fields to talk to you all about, what does it take to become a GM shooter? What does it mean to conceal carry safely? Should you carry a gun if you don't want to? What other tools are out there? Um, Guys, I've had the honor of sitting down with some of my just peers and people that I respect to come on and talk about things that I had no business talking about. So we are still going to have that component in season 2 of She Shield. We are also going to have an entertainment corner, which, oof, saying that out loud makes me almost cringe because I've always been so afraid to bring more entertainment to my platforms. I want to be taken seriously. I want to educate, and it's like, okay, well, entertainment doesn't do that, right? Well, I think that there's a really great opportunity for entertainment to bring awareness to the other aspects of the podcast, and that's why I've decided to do that. Um, you're gonna see segments of some people you may know well in the industry, maybe some you don't, of us reviewing things like the ballerina movie and fight scenes with guns and tools that were maybe not used the most practically, and kind of laughing together, talking about things like that. That's what I mean by entertainment, and I'm really striving to bring some education to those episodes as well. So fear not, if you click on that episode, you should get a little bit of everything there between storytelling, education, and of course, the entertaining component of people talking about these very popular scenes that you've probably seen in theater by now or at home. I guess nobody really goes to the theater anymore. I don't know. So we've gone over guest speaker episodes. We talked about entertainment. The third segment is, and these are not in any particular order, so please don't quote me. This is everything from memory right now. I'm rambling into my mic in my studio. So here we go. Number 3 is a female corner, women's corner, whatever you wanna call it, and the reason I'm using the word corner is actually from this true crime, podcast I listen to called My Favorite Murder. They use corner to describe the type of episode, so they'll have, like, or the type of topic, so they'll have a corrections corner, right? If they messed up in a previous episode, they'll have a little corner. So this is my women's corner. This is an episode devoted to a topic that particularly pertains to women. Does that mean it is only for women? Absolutely not. If you're a man listening and you have a woman in your life, mother, sister, wife, daughter, this is an opportunity for you to really key into some female specific topics and maybe even refer them to the episode where they feel a little bit more seen and a little bit more considered, right? This might look like, if you're a woman, what martial arts is right for you, right? We're going to talk about the importance of groundwork, jiu-jitsu, things like that, with people that have trained jiu-jitsu for years and train, and I'm kind of alluding to a few episodes coming up, but these are going to be uh, a specific spot for women. Really brings out the she and she shield, but I thought about rebranding the name. I'm gonna keep it, guys. I love it. It resonates with me, and I hope it does with you as well. And that brings me to the fourth and final, which is a deep dive educational episode with yours truly, myself. This will be something I choose to talk about, whether it be, my top 4 concealed carry, my favorite concealed carry firearms to recommend, the top 4 martial arts I think you should look into if you're trying to get started, things like that, guys, where I feel particularly driven to come on and talk about. Um, it may be something a little bit more obtuse, but for now, those are some examples I think are good because I get concealed carry questions probably more than anything, and I get it, guys. I was there, as I said before. So if you're still here, thank you so much. I will ask if you would take a moment to download this episode, share it with someone. She Shield is my pride and joy. It is the thing that I truly feel like I'm contributing to the world with. I want to know how to make it better. I want to build a community out of it. If you all have any feedback, feel free to email at sheshieldpod@gmail.com. Make sure you are following us on all of our social channels. It's at She Shield Pod, SHESHIELDPOD. And of course, the @ symbol if you want to be extra and throw it in there. But um, yeah, I'm really excited. This life has been completely blessed. And this is the place where I really get to be completely honest with you all about topics that have shaped the way I see the self defense world, the concealed carry world, the competition shooting world. And I'm just thankful you're here. This is episode 1 of She Shield season 2, and we'll see you in the next one.